Dystopia warning, obviously. Welcome back to Britain, the place where things never, ever, 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 ever get better. Thought I'd give you a fair warning that the things that I'm going to tell you today are going to absolutely boil your piss. You know, things that the BBC or the Sun won't report because they're too busy trying to nosh off Nigel Farage and his ilk. Certainly the kind of thing that you wouldn't get at GB News, you know, obviously. Because unlike them, and contrary to popular opinion amongst a certain faction of absolute idiots, I'm not on the payroll of billionaires. No. It's what's been getting on my tits the last couple of days, well, I'll tell you, won't I? Bite onto something, because I'm going to tell you precisely how the Tories are shafting you directly up the wrong un. But first, let's start off with something light and idiotic that Tom Harwood said the other day. He decided to post a tweet, right, talking about how MPs' pay is lower than it was in 2010 in real terms. You wait till he hears about the nurses. Do you know what? My heart bleeds for the MPs, the Tory MPs, raking it in. They've had to make sacrifices too, you know. They've had to cut down their regular 5Gs of GAC to just 2 a week. They've had to lower the standard of brothel that they attend. Yeah. And on top of that, they've had to face the embarrassment of having even less to sniff off strippers' arses. Literally no one acknowledging this, says Tom, yeah. Maybe that's because people are wondering how they're going to pay their mortgage, you fucking goit. Next up, the Mail decided to come for Angela Rayner, who said she's proud of 12-hour rave sessions while on holiday in Spain. To me, she sounds like a fucking legend, to be fair. I would rather rave it up with Angela Rayner and spend time in a room of Tories that would probably rape me up. Thank you. She's got a vape addiction, they've got a rape addiction. Let's put things into perspective. A rare little bit of cheerful news. Basic bean shagger and all-round opportunist Lee Anderson, aka 30p Lee, is on track to lose his seat by a whopping margin. Ha! No further comment. Get a load of this. Because the Tories know they're absolutely screwed at the next general election, they're doubling support to MPs who lose their seats, with 4 months severance pay for them to wind up their offices. They can be paid up to 17 grand under the new rules. Name any other job where people completely mess up what they've done to the point where they're ejected and they're given 4 months pay. It's an absolute piss take. It's just blatant profiteering. Well, it finally happened. Nadine Dorries, the shit that just would not flush, has finally resigned. Now that she's stopped pretending to be an MP after being on the payroll for a year but doing no work, it said that she's going to focus on the things that really matter to her, like gin, weeping, writing weird jizz novels, and ignoring the restraining order that Boris Johnson has against her. In her resignation letter, she took aim at Sunak's zombie government and said that nothing meaningful had been achieved. Well, she'd know how to recognise that phenomenon occurring, wouldn't she? I mean, she's telling the truth, but you know what they say. Even a stopped cock is right twice a day. Personally, I find it absolutely terrifying that this woman used to be a nurse. Not only is she easily the most gullible woman that I've ever seen, but there's also the fact that if she got any thicker, she'd set. And here we have the Daily Express, who have taken a break from shagging the ghost of Princess Diana to talk about how the Prime Minister is saying that 4 billion spend on asylum is unacceptable. The only reason they're spending that money is because they refuse to process the fucking backlogs. And the fact that they're using, you know, hotels, barges as publicity stunts because they're a bunch of publicity cunts. I'm a bit more bothered about the 4.3 billion in COVID payments lost to fraud. They weren't lost to fraud, were they? They were given in brown envelopes to friends of Tory MPs for PPE that wasn't usable, that resulted in the death of our NHS workers. But let's get on to Sunak, shall we? Oh, Johnny Short Trousers. Quite an apt name, really, considering how, you know, he is partly responsible for the financial crisis and part of a group of people who cashed into the tune of 100 million. Well, he was in the news this week for inadvertently breaking the MP's code of conduct over his wife's childcare interest. He essentially lied at the select committee about it and was said to have been confused. He also confused about his wife's family business Infosys still trading with Russia. His wife profits to the tune of £11 million this year alone. Yeah, that's right, the Prime Minister and his wife are benefiting from war crimes. If you still vote Conservative, you might as well just toddle on down to Downing Street, lube up your own bumhole and poke it through the gates. Because they're not even trying to hide it. This is the thing that makes me laugh about conspiracy theorists, right? They think up the maddest, most unbelievable scenarios you can ever imagine that aren't backed up by any form of demonstrable fact or logic. When in fact immersing myself in politics for the last 3 years has taught me that the most horrific, shocking corruption and crimes are happening in plain sight. Billionaires paying off MPs, horrific sex crimes, shocking corruption involving billions of pounds of our money, which is theft, insider trading. See, Rishi Sunak is just another Boris Johnson tribute act. They're all toffs. They're all cashing in on betting against the prosperity and the economic health of our country, leaving us to pick up the pieces, leaving us with the bill, and sailing off on yachts that we've paid for, whilst we lose our houses, whilst we lose any hope of a happy future, whilst we're stuck in survival mode for most of our lives. They're gambling with our futures, and they rely on us not reading about it, not hearing about it. They go to great lengths to stop us from hearing about it, actually. Yeah, they changed the Official Secrets Act to try and gag journalists, despite most of the press being on their side. I love the conspiracy theorists, because whilst we're all distracted, either countering people or dealing with people that think that Bill Gates is trying to bum 5G into them, whilst they're making us hate whatever vulnerable community they're targeting this week, they get away with murder in plain sight, literally. Look at austerity, look at COVID. One of the things that makes me most sick, right, is people that go, oh, you know what, Tan, really agree with you on the Tories, but oh, I couldn't vote for the alternative, or I'm not going to vote tactically. If that's the case, then you're not listening to a word I'm telling you. I don't make these just for shits and giggles so that people can bend over and wave in another Conservative government. Because that's exactly what you're doing unless you're prepared at the next general election to go out and not just remember what this lot have done, but do what's required to eradicate them. Because this is what we're living with. And it's not due to an accident, and it's not due to them, inadvertently fucking up. It's deliberate. Our suffering makes other people profit. It's about time people just stood up for themselves. Have some self-respect, for God's sake. Because if you still believe the Conservatives are the answer, you're not in touch with reality.